Hello and welcome to another video, and I actually was not planning on making this video. I've been kind of on a break for the month of August, but sometimes just earth-shattering things happen and I have to make a comment on it, and for this video I have to comment on this specific topic. So yeah, we're gonna go ahead and we're just gonna jump right in with it. In an unprecedented and honestly unbelievable move, Sony is raising the price of the PlayStation 5 after nearly 2 years on the market in pretty much every region but the United States. And we'll get to that. We'll get to that in a moment, because I fully believe the price hike will come to the United States as well, and we're going to talk about that. But it's important to note that, well, the price hike has happened in some regions. Other regions, it's like middle of September, so it's coming. In some regions, it's already there. And it varies region by region. Some regions, it's $20, and it is up to $50, depending on the region it's in. And let's just get the worst part of it out of the way. This is a terrible fucking move by any company. I would be making this video if this was Microsoft, Nintendo, or Sony. Like, it doesn't matter. You don't raise the price of a console 2 years after it's been on the market and just blame inflation for that, when your direct competitors are not doing that and have also publicly come out now and said they will not raise the price of their system. Sony has been on kind of a back trend this generation. I've kind of been saying that all along. They've just been making I consider a lot of wrong moves for their business, and this is possibly the worst one. And I don't know how much this is going to affect them, but I wouldn't be surprised if they really stick to their guns and continue this. It does come to America that we might see the tide shift again, and by the end of this generation, it might be a Microsoft generation. Between the value of Game Pass, and now you have a system that is identical in power, and sometimes a little bit weaker depending on the Digital Foundry video, but it's $50 more for no other reason than Sony claiming inflation, essentially. This is also a system, and I'll remind you, that is not readily available in the United States. This is a system that people are still fighting to get in the United States. I'll say this, like, this past weekend, I actually had a chance to go into a GameStop because I was looking for something specific that was on sale at GameStop. I happened to see 2 Series X systems in store on shelves, but no PS5s. Every time I go into Walmart, they've never had PS5s. They actually started posting signs now that say that the PS5 can only be purchased online through Walmart.com, but they had Series X systems, and that's my point. Like, you can't even get a PS5 in the United States right now. So yeah, there's no reason for this. Like, I get it, times are tough. I've talked about this on podcast 572. Highly recommend you go listen to the podcast. I post the videos on this channel, so this will be a quick plug for that as well. We just had a pretty lengthy discussion about the price hike and what it means for the United States, but I also want to mention, like, Meta just did this with the Quest 2, where they were raising the price to like $100, which is, even more ridiculous. And they at least, well, I'm not going to sit here and defend the decision for what they're doing. They at least are giving people a game. Sony's not doing anything. They're just raising the price of the system, saying, hey, guess what, motherfuckers? It's now $550. Sorry. We're approaching the $600 price point that the PS3 was at launch. And you thought that was ridiculous back in 2006? It's still ridiculous in 2022. These systems should not cost $550. Not to mention, Sony also just announced that the PSVR 2 will not come out until spring of next year. How much money is the PSVR 2 going to cost if your system is now $550? I guarantee you the price point for PSVR 2 is easily on the low end, $400. This is just unprecedented. I was trying to look, I was trying to do some searches, and you can correct me in the comments below if I'm wrong on this, but I do not remember a time when a console system had been out this long in its generation and gone up in price. I don't think it's ever happened. And it's a slap to the face of all consumers, especially we're still going through a pandemic globally. You know, it's loosened up in some places and still raging in others. Yet we're gonna raise the price on this fucking video game system. A lot of people, that's a make or break it point for them. Let me talk about North America, because, you know, again, the big thing about this whole post is this is not in North America yet. Now, they don't allude to it coming to North America. They don't say one way or the other in their post. They literally just say these regions, there's a price increase coming. I fully believe that this price increase will come to North America. Will it come before or after this holiday? I think, honestly, they'll wait till next year. I don't think they're going to hit people up this holiday. With all that being said, there's just no way. Every other region is going to be more expensive. Why would they keep America off that chart? And I think the reason why they did this is because if Sony was to have done this in all of these regions at once, they know that North America would be the most vocal. And here's why I say that. Remember about a year and a half, almost 2 years ago, when Microsoft tried to raise the price of Xbox Live by doubling the cost of it. And in the matter of 12 hours, they reversed that decision because online backlash was so extreme. I feel like that would be the same thing here for Sony. And that's why they didn't do it in North America, but they did it in every other region. Because now when they do make that announcement, they can say, well, you know, we already did this in every other market for the last X amount of months. Now we have to do it in North America. We're sorry, it's inflation. You know, I fully believe it's coming. So it's ridiculous. I'm glad I got my PS5 at launch. And, you know, knock on wood, it's still working just fine. Same with the Series X. I haven't had any issues with either system this time around, which is really, really cool. But we're at the point of the generation where we should be talking about redesigns. We should be talking about updated SKUs, and we're talking about a price increase for the existing system, which, again, is just unprecedented. This never happens. So between Sony trying to push first-party games to be $70 this generation, which just is ridiculous, and now increasing the price of their system, they're really setting themselves up for a market churn towards Microsoft, which has already kind of started to happen this generation. People are not as opposed to Xbox as they were last generation. You know, I mention this on the podcast all the time with my buddy Dan. You know, we both worked at GameStop. I worked there for 5 years, pretty much during the heyday of the Xbox One generation and the tail end of the 360 generation. He worked between Game Crazy and GameStop for 20 years, so he's seen it all for kind of the modern generations. And we've both collectively seen the tides churn between this system and that system. What system is kind of the market share? And the thing, you know, last generation, Microsoft did so much damage at that Xbox One reveal, they couldn't recover the entire generation. I still, when I worked at GameStop, would have customers come in 4 or 5 years later saying they didn't want to buy an Xbox One because of the online check-in system. That's how damaging that was. Now, these moves right now are not that damaging. Like, people still want a PS5, but increasing the price $50 when your direct competitor has a system that is just as good, if not better, in terms of power. It also has, like, the single greatest subscription service for video games right now, and you get day one games on that service. Like, it's a no-brainer. I've seen a lot of people recently, especially, and heard a lot of stories of people walking into stores like GameStop and looking to see what system to buy and ending up with a Series X or S because of Game Pass and because the PlayStation's already not readily available. On the flip side of that, if you're also going to increase the price of the system, it's really going to be hard. So, while the PlayStation 5 has had a pretty decent start to this generation, this kind of shot in the foot can really damage the look of a console manufacturer for an entire generation. So, chop that up with the fact that, like, we're 2 months away from the release of arguably one of the biggest games of 2022, if it's still coming out this year, which is God of War Ragnarok. And I feel like it's just dead. Like, I see no hype for this game. They barely show any trailers for it. It took them forever to announce that November 8th release date. I don't know if Sony is quiet on it because they're just simply getting close to maybe announcing a delay until next year, or what the deal is with it, but it's just been really, really quiet on that front. So, and again, I'd argue that's one of the biggest games coming out this year. So, I don't know, man. Like, on the flip side, I mean, you have some pretty decent, like, third-party games. The other thing I'd like to point out, and one thing I think is really awesome this generation, is last generation, a lot of JRPGs just did not come to the Xbox, which is what made owning a PlayStation 4 essential for most people. And this generation, we have a trio, we have 2 games at least that are coming out September and October that, if they came out last generation, would not come to the Xbox, which is Diofield Chronicles, which is, you know, a crazy, it's almost like a Fire Emblem meets Final Fantasy Tactics game. Would never normally come to the Xbox, but is this generation. And then we also have the latest Star Ocean games. The last Star Ocean game, Integrity and Faithlessness, did not come to the Xbox, but this one is, and that's important to note. Also, recently, I've been kind of messing around with Digimon Survive just to see what it was like. I got that for the Xbox, a physical copy of it. That would have never happened last generation. So the tides have really churned on getting Japanese games, and especially JRPGs, on the Xbox. And also to point out, like, Persona 5 is going to hit the Xbox in October, even though I think most Persona fans have probably already played the game. But if you're an Xbox fan, never owned a PlayStation, highly recommend it. It's my game of the year 2017 on this channel. Love that game to death. So I'd love to know in the comments below, what do you think? I'd love to know in the comments below, what do you think of Sony's price hike? Do you think this is good for some reason? You probably think it's bad. Do you think it's going to damage Sony in any way? Do you agree with me that you think that if it could do as much damage as the Microsoft 2013 Xbox One reveal did for Microsoft? I'd love to know. Remember, as always, to like, share, and subscribe to the channel. Please, if you have not yet, subscribe to Podcast 572. You can listen to it here on my YouTube channel. I always put the audio version of it up on here for people that maybe don't download podcasts on any podcast services. But if you'd rather listen to it that way, it is on Spotify, Apple, anywhere that you can get a podcast. It's available. Just search Podcast 572. And as always, until next time.